Welcome. So glad to have you join me today. I'm Ivory LaNoue, and today's topic is You Are Not Going Crazy. Before we jump into that, I'd like to say hello to my listeners in Magnolia, Texas. I'm so delighted to have you here with me, and thank you so much for listening to the show. So, what this You Are Not Going Crazy is about is at Sedona Soul Sisters, my business, and just my clients, seeing my clients, my students, people will often come to me and they'll say, first thing they'll say when they sit down in my office is, Ivory, I think I'm going crazy. And when they say that, inevitably, it ends up being something I understand very well. And that is that when you have a spiritual awakening, especially if it happens fast and powerfully, those veils thin within yourself, and you can start seeing angels, seeing spirit, seeing interdimensional beings, just experiencing things that you have no way to explain. And the human mind responds to that by thinking, I must be going crazy. So that's not always true. I worked in the field of mental health for 16 years, and there's a big difference between someone having a schizophrenic or just basically hallucinating and somebody having a spiritual awakening, and there are signs that go along with that. So I want to tell you a little bit, I like to share stories with you that help you understand. I think in sharing some of my experiences, you probably will see something of yourself in it, or somebody that you will understand needs this help. So back in 84, I was living in Prescott. I had a little girl. I was married, and I was working. Where was I working in? I was managing a financial planning firm at that time. And it started one night. I was lying in bed and I heard this pop sound. And I looked to the left and I saw this thing float through the wall from outside into my room, and it just hovered at the height of my face for about 40 minutes or so. And it was about this big, and it was opalescent and had movement within, with a black nucleus and a black outside. And I had never seen anything like that in my life. I had no idea. Yeah, I'd seen angels in spirit all my life, but not this. And I was scared. I thought that I was terrified because my whole body was shaking like this at a really, really high rate. And I thought I was terrified. I now believe that is associated with the being itself that comes in. Like when something is extraordinarily high frequency, it can make your whole body shake like this. And it's also that sense of shaking intensely, rapidly like that is also something that happens, in my experience, when you are reaching a new level of frequency. And so it's just sort of a sign that your body has risen to a new level of frequency. So you may experience that yourself more than once on your journey. So anyway, I'm lying in bed and I'm shaking, and I wanted to hide under the covers, but I couldn't move. I literally could not move, and it wasn't frozen with fear. I was unable to move. I still don't know what that was about. And then that thing eventually just floated back through the wall to the outside and was gone. This went on night after night after night. And then it started to be other things. There were this amoeba shaped, like I always describe it as like an oddly shaped jacks. If you're my age or older, you remember playing with jacks. Well, it looked like a jack, only some of the legs were longer, and it was black and fuzzy, like velvet. And so that floated through the wall into the room, and it went on my bed. And I didn't like that one bit. And one night it reached out one of those soft leg things and stroked my face like this, but it was this side of my face. And that's how I know it felt like velvet. And at that point, I unfroze and I dove under the covers. When I came out, it was gone. And the next thing that happened was these balls, about the size of a baseball, started bouncing around silently. I could see out one of the doors from the bedroom into the living room, and I left it open at night because I could hear my daughter if she needed me. And I saw this neon green balls bouncing around in the living room, and they were silent, but they were bouncing. It went on for a couple of hours, and I wanted to go look at it, but again, I couldn't move, and I was scared. I didn't really know what was going on here. So that went on for the whole time we lived in that house. I mean, it just started shortly after we moved in and continued the whole time we lived there. During that time, I just started thinking, I need to go see somebody. I'm having a breakdown of some sort. And I was in a very abusive marriage, and there was a lot of stress associated with that. So I thought maybe it was caused by that. I don't know. I was 24 years old. I just was so young. So I went to see a counselor, and she ended up, it was a counselor at the same network that I ended up starting my mental health career in later. So now I know how amazing this is. This was my angels guiding me to a specific counselor, because I went in and saw her, and she said, tell me what's going on. Because I did say, I think I might be going crazy. Tell me why, what's going on? And I told her, and she just calmly says, you're not crazy. You are having a spiritual awakening. You are seeing astral beings. She said, I've seen things like that. Those are astral beings. And I didn't know what it was. This was before internet, far before smartphones. So I went to the library, and there was not very much there. I ended up joining a spiritual circle so I could find out more about this information. And that really did kick off my journey of exploration, not just like experiencing things myself, but seeking out people who knew more about it, people who could guide me and help me. So I wasn't going crazy, but it really did feel like I was. And so I have great compassion for people when they come to me and they're in that state. And I like to just calm them down and say, you know, and I'm telling all of you, just because you experience something you've never experienced before and you can't explain does not mean you are losing your mind. You're not having some sort of mental breakdown. This is a common occurrence with the spiritual awakening. So perhaps yours starts in a different way, but at some point you will raise your frequency to a level where you can see things most people cannot. So all these different dimensions are around us. All these different dimensions exist. And most people are not at a frequency that allows them to see these other beings, but they're there. I have seen them in broad daylight outside when I least expect it. They pop up in my office when I had my office at Sedona Soul Sisters, and now that I have it at home, they still pop up here in my office. So you never know. It's happened in hotel rooms. It's you are there. So wherever you are, these occurrences can happen. What I don't want to have happen, and I'm trying to help you avoid with this episode, is to get so scared that you shut down your journey, that you shut down your gifts, that you shut down the acceptance of things you don't know exist. So there's many, many things in the scientific world that we did not know existed, such as neurons, until we had the ability to see them. We had no idea they were there, but they were still there. There's nothing different when it comes to spirituality. It really has a lot to do with science. And I have a scientific brain. I think that way. I'm very logical, love scientific experiments, and I like to experiment with things that are happening to me and for me, not to me, for me, because it's beautiful and it's exciting. So start keeping a journal, write down the day and the time and what you experienced. You may never see the beings that I saw. You may see exactly those beings, but that's not the point. The point is when you start experiencing things, like you may suddenly start hearing things others don't. So when I was with my first paranormal investigative team, and our purpose was to release spirits that were trapped here on Earth and help them cross to the other side. But anyway, we were in an investigation, and I said, does anybody hear that singing, that humming? And they're like, no, what do you hear? There's a recording of this somewhere. I'll have to find it. And I hum this melody. Nobody else, everybody's like, no, I don't hear it. But later on the recording, I hum it right after you can hear the spirit humming it. So it picked up on the recording, though the other people there did not hear it. So you may hear things like that that are actually happening, things that are occurring. Just because others don't hear it doesn't mean it's not there. You know, your experiences are valid. And if you are able to function in life, if you're able to go to school or go to work and take care of yourself and your family, your home, your apartment, and you're doing well with those things, you're functioning in life, odds are you don't have a mental illness. So if you were literally having a mental illness involving hallucinations, it definitely affects different aspects of daily living. That's how it's determined to be a serious mental illness, is how many areas of life are you not able to function in. So if you're functioning, then that I hope is a reassurance to you. Okay, I heard what Ivory said. I'm functioning. I'm able to work. I'm able to go to school. I'm keeping up things around the house. I take care of my children. I take care of myself. I bathe. I change my clothes. I wash my clothes. You're fine. So I want you to hear this loud and clear, that expect interesting things to happen on your spiritual journey. Because I was just talking about this with a friend the other day. Like, they were talking about, there was a Mormon friend, and they said about how the Mormons believe, you know, that the veil, there's a thin veil between us and the other side. I said, I believe that too. I know that's true. That's exactly how I describe it. But there's also these veils within ourselves. And we don't really know if they're put there by us, by society, if we're born with them. I don't think we're born with them, because most small children see angels, see spirit. They're very open to these things because they don't know not to. They don't know that's not accepted in a lot of society. But then later they lose that ability. Not all of them, but they'll lose that ability. So obviously we're not born with a block, but it comes in there somehow. Maybe it is from religions telling us, oh, that's bad. You shouldn't be doing that. Or you shouldn't, if you hear that, that's a bad sign. You know, I've had people try to tell me different things are a sign of possession and a sign of demons. And I'm like, no, I know what that stuff's like. I've had to battle those things for people, and that's not it. So something being unexplained and unexperienced by other people also doesn't make it a negative thing. I want you to expect it and think of it, approach it as a wondrous thing. Look at the miracles you are experiencing. And I'm telling you, there are so many people who come to me and they want to see these things. They want to experience these things. And that's a good place to begin, because it says you're willing, you're open to it, but you can't make yourself experience these things. So I always tell them, well, go out, you know, work on yourself, work on your spiritual journey, your personal growth, frequency, consciously raising your frequency is where to begin. But if you're watching this show and you had thoughts of maybe you're going crazy, your frequency's already raising. Your frequency's already up there pretty high, because you're able to see these things. That includes angels. You cannot see angels unless you raise your frequency fairly high and keep it high. People will tell me something, they'll say something about, what is it like to have your job be a medium? And I'm like, first off, it's not a job. I would say it's more like a calling. And I've explained to my parents, it's very much like becoming a nun. You have to dedicate your life to being a medium. You have to keep yourself in a sacred space. You have to keep yourself as pure and high frequency as possible. And I'm not saying I'm an angel. I'm not an angel. Nobody's an angel. But I do say that I consciously pay attention to what I think about, what I talk about, the kind of things I'm around, what I watch, what I read. And I try to keep those thoughts pure and high frequency, because if I don't, I can't do my work properly. And angels won't be as interested in communicating with me if I go low frequency. So you raise your frequency, and let's say you start here. You're at this baseline, human baseline, which is not very high. So then you raise your frequency, and now you're seeing astral beings. Then you raise your frequency a little higher. Now you're seeing angels. You raise a little higher. Now you're seeing archangels. The higher you go, the higher frequency beings you can see and hear and experience. And as if you might know, if you've been watching, listening to my show, or you've read my book, I do have a mission. God did give me a mission. And my mission is to help people connect with their angels to get the full benefit of their guidance. So today's show is a lot about that. Because if you get afraid as you're raising your frequency and you're seeing astral beings, you might stop your journey and stop your growth before you're able even to be in the realm where you can see and hear angels. I have a grandson who is a very strong psychic medium, but he's young. And I had the greatest visit with him. He came and stayed with me for 8 days last week, and we just had a blast. And one of the nights we were in a hotel room, and I said, let's do a little experiment. And we practiced seeing angels and teaching him how he can do that. And he did not see them right away, but that's okay, because he has a lot of outside influence telling him those things aren't good. Not his parents, but a lot of outside influence. So I said, you have the ability, and you're going to be able to see this when you're ready. And I'm telling all of you, as you're practicing these skills, don't lose hope and stop. I actually have one person, the student I love so much, who couldn't see them. And she finally said, I need to take a break from classes, because she just thought, I don't have the ability and I'm just making myself crazy. Year and a half later, she kept working at it. Year and a half later, I get an email saying, Ivory, I'm seeing angels. I can see them anytime I want. And my heart just sang for her. So if you're watching, listening, and you haven't had these experiences and you want to, it really does come down to frequency. You can look at my blog. I'm on ivoryangelicmedium.com. I have a blog post, 10 ways to raise your frequency. And it's really just like the baby steps starting point, because there are many, many ways you can raise your frequency to experience more of these things, to pull down the internal veils you have. That's a good starting point. And once you've integrated those 10 into your life, then you go search online and find more, because there's always more. There's what you eat and don't eat. There's eliminating toxins from your body, eliminating chemicals from your skin, your body, like your clothing detergent, your products you use on your hair, your body, your face. Many things you can do that help raise your frequency. But I like to give you just those starting points to get you going and put one into practice. Those of you who feel like you are losing your mind, I strongly encourage you to first talk to your angels and guides and say this in your own words. Angels, I'm asking you to slow down my spiritual awakening. It's too much for me. Please slow things down. I wish I had known that I had that option back in 84, 85, because I got very little sleep and I was a mess. So please do that. You can set the boundaries for how this works. And then if later you feel like you're ready for more, you can say, angels, I would like you to increase my spiritual awakening again. Rapid, make it more rapid, whatever you can handle, but please don't go without sleep for long periods of time. And please don't let yourself be disturbed seriously by what's happening. So let things happen at the pace you can handle it and you want to have it happen. And then secondly, I strongly encourage you to get a mentor. And it doesn't have to be me. Any mentor, it doesn't have to be in person. It just is somebody who understands what's happening with you, can explain it, can guide you, somebody to listen, who will not judge you, who will accept your experiences, and somebody you can talk to honestly. Because one of the hardest things about a spiritual awakening is not having somebody in your life who understands. And I was in that position. I had a husband who wanted nothing to do with that, really was not interested in that. And my family was definitely, they're very conservative. They would not be open to that. And I didn't have any friends that were into that. So I changed that. Like, I joined that spiritual circle and started going to meetings and giving myself friends who were on a spiritual journey. And one of those friends, Kathy Stacy, I hope she hears me because she was a great friend, told me about Belinda Howe. And Belinda Howe lived in Prescott, where I lived, and she was doing mentoring. So I called her up, and she like tuned into my frequency and is like, okay, yeah, you really do need somebody to guide you because you're meant to be doing this work professionally. I'm like, oh, then hadn't even thought about it. So I went and did at least a year, it might have been a year and a half of private lessons with her, just really tuning into what's happening, working on my frequency, doing Reiki, becoming a Reiki master with her, doing vocal healing, using my voice, working on my intuition, which is always like a major building block to any spiritual gifts and spiritual journey. It was invaluable because I could save up everything and I'd write it all down. I have journals for over 40 years because I've had some wild experiences and I didn't want to forget anything. So I'd take my journal in and show it to her, and we'd talk about the things I'd experienced. And almost always she had experienced that or similar things, and we could talk about it. And just the relief of having somebody say, oh, tell me about the interesting things that happened to you this week. Oh, I know what that was. And what did you do in response? And I started feeling less fear and less doubt about myself, about having these experiences, and started just seeing it as this amazing journey of exploration that I was on, which is the truth. You know, when you choose to open yourself up, raise your frequency, and really get into a spiritual awakening, the adventures before you are astounding. And I always laugh a little bit when people say, the only parts of Earth left unexplored are under the ocean. And I'm like, yes, but there's all of this other stuff that's metaphysical and scientific and paranormal and supernatural that have not been fully explored. It's wonderful that there are legitimate scientists associated with major universities who are studying the afterlife and paranormal activity and supernatural activity and getting legitimate scientific data. And I think that's so important all over the world, as a matter of fact. So I think we're getting ready to have this huge explosion of a way that anybody can talk to their loved ones on the other side. And as a medium, that's so exciting to me, because I know when people come to see me, spirit's delighted because I can pass their messages on to their loved one, but they'd much rather talk directly to their loved one. Of course they would, so I applaud that. I'm hoping that happens. If you haven't heard of Sonia Rinaldi, please look her up. She is a scientist who's doing incredible things in the field of afterlife communications that will blow your mind. And you will find it very fascinating. She was at the afterlife symposiums we had in Scottsdale for several years, and she was one of the speakers and gave presentations, and I got to meet her. I was just so impressed with her work, and I know many, many people are. And she helps parents who've lost their children for free to communicate directly with their children on the other side. So something to think about, Sonia Rinaldi. But again, back to this whole thing of all these mind-blowing experiences. I think part of the problem why people automatically get scared is TV and movies. They've got all these horror movies where they dramatize everything. So you think if something strange comes in, it's going to end up badly. It's going to scare you. It's going to hurt you. That is not true. It is not true. I've honestly never had anything that's of the light come in and hurt me. They want to communicate with you. They recognize that your frequency is getting higher, and they see you, you see them, they see you, and they're excited that another human is raised their frequency to this level. This is a great thing. They can't do much to help us or communicate with us if enough of us don't wake up and raise up to the frequency to allow that to happen. They desperately want to. So we're doing, all of us in the spiritual community are doing what we can to help with that, including telling you this now. So don't stop it. Don't shut it down out of fear. Just trust, say a little prayer to God, ask your angels to surround you in white light and protect you. And honestly, it's almost always just something coming in, and it's observing you as you're observing it. And it's kind of like, I don't know if they're coming into our dimension or we're traveling into theirs, or there's an overlap of dimensions. I just know it happens. And I know that I'm a very sane, rational, grounded person. And I have these experiences regularly, not the ones I was telling you about that's progressed to some other things, but I have supernatural paranormal experiences regularly, daily. And I know that I'm perfectly sane and grounded. So don't doubt yourself. I mean, there's other signs too, like if you've been consciously working on yourself, if you've been reading spirituality books, if you've been going to classes, training with someone, consciously working on raising your frequency, and you start having these things happen, take it as a confirmation it's working. What you're doing is working. This is some of the things you expect to happen. And I know that the human brain is wired to be afraid of that which is unexplained, which they haven't experienced, but we don't need to be afraid of everything. You always go, something I like to say is go by your feeling. As soon as something happens, as soon as something comes in that's unfamiliar to you, take a minute to just feel what it feels like. Do you feel that wonderful, like is the frequency high and you're shiver, like shaking a little bit? Do you feel like the vibration around your body of high frequency? Do you get chills, which is, angels, the light? Or if it's something else, if you feel pain in your solar plexus, which is the area on your stomach between your belly button and your rib cage, or if you feel heaviness or sick to your stomach, that's not something good. Go by how it feels, not necessarily your fear, but how it feels. So I do that really quickly when it's something unfamiliar to me. And then on the rare occasion it's not something of the light, I blast its butt out of there. I gather up all of my white light. I ask my angels, please join me, give me your energy. God, put your energy into me. And I just send out this enormous blast of white light. And I usually accompany that by saying, anything that is not of the light, that is not of the highest and best for me, must leave my house, my home, my property, my presence now. And it's amazing how, as I say that, I feel the angels coming in. You will feel the difference. Like it just feels clearer and lighter all of a sudden. But honestly, most of you are never going to have to deal with that. Trust it's something good, something of the light, something that's seeing you, seeing it. And if you need to go to a mental health professional to make sure that you just in your own mind that you're okay, do what I did, which is I asked my angels, please send me to the right counselor. And here's what I'm going to tell you is a little bit of a miracle. So I went to see this counselor, and she worked for the same agency I started my mental health career in, which I worked in the psychiatric hospital part of it. She worked in the counseling facility. And working there, I worked there 7.5 years, which in that business was like a dinosaur due to the stress level. And I know now what a miracle it was that there was somebody working there who was that open to spiritual events, who knew what astral beings were, and who felt comfortable telling me, I'm not crazy. I'm just experiencing astral beings. My frequency is rising. Because I'm telling you, there was very precious little of that to be found in that facility. And so your angels will guide you to the right person, because what you don't want to do is go to a mental health professional who thinks if somebody sees something they've never seen, they must be hallucinating. And that's primarily what's out there. There are some who are not like that because I know them. They worked for me. I met them. Great people, highly appreciated, coveted, precious gems in the field. But if you feel like you need that kind of confirmation, let your angels guide you to the right person. I'm just so grateful that they sent me to who they did. And it could have gone very differently if I'd gone to somebody with more traditional thinking. I might have shut that down, and who knows when it would have started again. These things are happening because you're meant to have this awakening. It's time for you to experience these things. It's time for you to really bump up your spiritual journey, your personal growth, everything. It's just a sign for you that you're going to a next level. And I hope that all of you can hear today's show and embrace that as the miracle it is, and look forward to experiencing that yourself. And then if you start thinking I'm crazy, remember Ivory saying, you are not crazy. You are moving forward on your spiritual journey and your frequency is rising. And I'm going to be so excited for you. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you subscribe to the podcast and like it so you make my day. And tune in next Sunday when the topic is why the dark attacks good people. I think that's an important topic, and a lot of people are asking me about it, and I'm going to address that next week. In the meantime, may your angels surround you. May your angels protect you every minute, every day of your life. I'll see you next week.